Can't lie, I never would have called this. So Wonder Man is a new Marvel Cinematic Universe series on Disney Plus that dropped on January 27th, and I gotta be honest, I did not have any excitement for this whatsoever leading up to it. And I just expected this to be one of those projects like Blade and Armor Wars that Marvel announces and then does nothing with. Somehow it finally gained traction, but there were multiple reasons why I did not expect to actually enjoy this whatsoever. Not a project announced at D23 or Comic-Con, seemingly had a production that was kept under wraps, January release date, dropping all 8 episodes at once instead of releasing them weekly like other Disney Plus series, and to top it all off, they cast an actor that I am not overly fond of. First of all, in the late 2010s, early 2020s, it seemed like Yahya Abdul-Mateen II was one of those actors that Hollywood was really trying to push and make stick, and I just never really got into him. I didn't care for the Watchmen show whatsoever. I never saw Candyman, and yeah, I guess he was fine as Black Manta in the Aquaman movies, but what really soured my opinion of him is when he was talking about making the Aquaman movies and how he described them as clown work. I'm really sick of the people in the industry who write off comic book movies as not real movies, and this just was another one of those, and I didn't really care for that comment. So when I hear that he's cast as Wonder Man, not only am I thinking, okay, great, you cast someone who doesn't resemble the character at all, where I would have preferred someone more akin to like Nathan Fillion because that's the voice that I hear in my head when I'm reading the comics, but because of his comments he made on the Aquaman movies, I'm immediately assuming, okay, so he took this for the paycheck and is probably just going to be phoning in his performance the whole time. And then I started watching the show where I was force-fed a nice thick slice of humility. Because no BS, this guy's actually pretty good. As I understand it in the source material, Simon Williams inherited his father's business venture, and his main competitor was none other than Tony Stark. After an embezzlement scheme, he turned to his brother Grim Reaper, who was a supervillain, who then got him in contact with the Masters of Evil, where he was then put through an experimental process infusing him with ionic energy, giving him superpowers, where he then took up the title Wonder Man and was a villain. After a skirmish with the Avengers that led to his death, he was eventually revived because comics, and then rehabilitated into a superhero. And while being a superhero, he took up acting as a career. This show took all of that and chucked it out the window, but they kept the acting part. And if I were to come at this as a comic purist, there would be red flags all over the place. But the thing is, this show isn't trying to be a superhero show. They are tackling Simon as an actor. It's very different, but it's also really good because now the focus isn't on him being a hero, saving the world and protecting people. It's him dealing with the burden of having superpowers and trying to suppress that and fly under the radar while also trying to be an actor, which is an industry that has outlawed anyone with superpowers from working in. And because Hollywood likes to make movies about themselves and how everything works, and there's a lot of inside jokes for people who understand the filmmaking process, there's a lot of meta commentary on the whole industry overall, especially that of superhero fatigue. This is more akin to something like Babylon or The Studio as opposed to Iron Man or Avengers. Like I said, performances are great. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II does a really good job portraying this character, and I'd say the supporting cast does a pretty good job of complimenting him. Ben Kingsley as Trevor Slattery, this is a character I've always been frustrated with ever since Iron Man 3, and I understand that there's some enjoyment to have out of the comedy aspect of him, but frankly, I wish this was never the case, and I did not care for this character's inclusion post Iron Man 3 in the MCU, but this was an instance where I enjoyed him the most. He wasn't a drunken fool like he was in Iron Man 3, he wasn't an over-the-top comedic relief like he was in Shang-Chi. He definitely had his comedic moments and still the same mannerisms and antics, but it was dialed back a little bit, and you also got a little bit more of a serious side and understood him from the perspective of him as an actor. The dynamic of having this veteran actor with a really shady past trying to coach this new up-and-coming actor who is going for a role that is really near and dear to his heart because it is a remake of a film that meant a lot to him as a kid is very fascinating to watch on screen. The cinematography in this series is actually really well done, and it actually feels professional. I feel like a lot of MCU projects, namely the Disney Plus shows, get really stale and generic with their cinematography, and it feels like they're just using DPs for hire instead of actually putting some passion and artistry on screen. Same can be said with the writing. A lot of these Disney Plus shows suffer from bad writing, rushed episodes, and not knowing how to properly pace out their runtimes. Wonder Man uses 8 episodes that are 30 minutes each, the shortest I think being like 25 minutes, and yet every single one of them feels properly structured. Okay, that may not be entirely true. The short one that I mentioned is easily my least favorite of the season and was the one episode that I would consider bad because it felt the most MCU-like and kind of a bit more like filler than anything. But there's an entire standalone episode that has nothing to do with our main characters and more so works to establish in-universe lore than anything, but it works so well that it doesn't disrupt the flow of the show, and I honestly think that dropping all 8 episodes at once was a good idea if you were going to include a show like that. Instead of having to wait a week, I can just start the next episode immediately after that and it all flows together in one serialized season, as opposed to what feels like simply pausing this super long movie for a week at a time, as is the case with many of these other Disney Plus shows. And because we're tackling Simon as an actor, not so much a superhero saving the day and protecting people from big bad villains, a lot of this is focused on him as a person and the dramatic side, and not so much the action. Simon also has a brother in this named Eric, who in the comics becomes the villain Grim Reaper, but there is nothing in this show that really indicates that he's headed down that direction at this point in the series. If they did a season 2, maybe that's an arc that they could go after, but as of right now, he just feels more like this older brother that's disappointed in his brother's career. If you're going into this thinking there will be big superhero spectacle, you're gonna be disappointed, because there is hardly any action at all. You do see Simon use his powers from time to time, but it's more so an accident or a burden on his life, not so much him actually fighting. From what I remember, there is only one sequence in the entire show where he is actually beating people up with his powers, and yet I did not feel starved for that at any point while watching. As such, there's no real big bad that he's working to take down. In WandaVision, we had Agatha Harkness. In Falcon and Winter Soldier, we had the Flag Smashers. In Moon Knight, we had whatever Ethan Hawke's character's name was. In this, I mean, we have the damage control guy from Spider-Man No Way Home and Ms. Marvel, but other than that, there's no defined antagonist. He's more of just a force they have to elude and helps add stakes and tension to the overall narrative that's baked into the core of the plot. And the way this show concludes is with a very atypical but also a very well-deserved finale, because if one thing has plagued these Marvel shows, it is they don't know how to finish them off. They all culminate in the same fashion where it feels just like a movie's generic third act, and they're always the weakest part of any of these series, because they're writing all these Disney Plus shows like movies and then padding the runtime. This actually feels like it was written from the ground up as a serialized show and does nothing but benefit from that. I would say casual MCU fans and Wonder Man purists who love the comics that he's in are probably not going to enjoy this if they're setting expectations that this is going to be either A, homogenous MCU stuff, or B, a faithful adaptation of the character from the comics and not some different reinterpretation. But I have a feeling that cinephiles and people who are just looking for something different in this sea of Marvel content are actually going to enjoy this a lot. Like I said, it's not a perfect show, but if I'm going to give this a score out of 10, I'm going to have to give it an 8. And if you would have told me a week ago that I would be giving this show that kind of score, I would not have believed you, because I genuinely did not have any excitement or anticipation leading up to the actual release. The way this was marketed and delivered feels like Disney had no faith in it whatsoever and was trying to crap it out as quickly as possible. And yet it wound up being one of the best Marvel shows they produced on their platform. But it just goes to show that you can't always judge a book by its cover, and everything is worth a shot, even the stuff you're not always looking forward to, because sometimes bad marketing, bad trailers getting cut, and bad publicity can bog down an actually truly good story. So Wonder Man, let me know in the comments whether you liked it or you hated it, or if you even knew that it was out, because yeah, they haven't been promoting this one very much at all, really. Feel free to share your opinions in the comments, but if you're going to disagree with people, don't be an animal and go at each other's throats, okay? This is just a show after all, not the most important thing in the world. But if you like this review, then please like this video and subscribe for more videos like this if you want them in your feed, and hit the bell so you know when I'm uploading. And if you want more content from me that isn't YouTube exclusive, you can check out the links in the description down below. They'll take you to multiple different platforms where I post tons of reviews that don't always make it onto this channel, and the ones that I do post on this channel, I always post on those platforms long before I add together a video. And if you're into short form content, I do post shorts on this channel when I update my movie collection. As you can see, I have quite a few, and I'm on my way to 1,000 different titles in my collection, so be sure to check that out. And until next time, guys, God be with you, and take care.